Welcome to this edition of Inside the Tackle Box with Dakota Angler. I'm Todd Heitkamp, Jack Linneman. Two familiar faces. We are on episode 5 of Inside the Tackle Box. We appreciate all of you guys watching these episodes. I hope you find them useful, and based upon the feedback that we've received, a lot of people are enjoying them. And if you have any ideas, any suggestions on topics that you would like us to talk about, by all means, let us know. Give us a call here at the store or send us an email, and we'd be more than happy to talk about whatever topic you would like discussed. In this week's topic, we're going to really talk about something that is in everyone's tackle box, something that someone has used all the time, and that's really a jig, a lead-headed jig versus a tungsten jig. And we're going to talk about the differences between the two, when you would want to use them, and some of the advantages or disadvantages of those as well. So, Jack, let's get things started. Let's talk about some of the main differences between a lead jig and a tungsten jig.
For sure. There's definitely, hundreds of jigs in the market. Everyone's used to their traditional lead jig, but over the past few years, tungsten jigs have really, I wouldn't say took over the market, but have became, really popular. So I just kind of wanted to highlight, what you're paying for, what the fundamental differences are, and then we'll get into kind of some of the applications when they're maybe better or maybe don't make as much of a difference on the water. So the first thing that everyone notices, or the first thing that I notice in the package, is just the size difference. So on your typical tungsten jig compared to a lead jig, you're going to notice a very big size difference where the tungsten jig is going to be a lot smaller profile. So whether that means a couple things, maybe there's more finicky fish, it can be more beneficial in that aspect, but also just going to cut through the water better, and then it's a lot more dense than a lead jig. So as far as that goes, yeah.
Well, main thing is that it's going to fall a little bit quicker, right? And since it's a little more dense, it's going to fall quicker and allow you to get down, especially if you're talking about a school of fish or anything like that, or if you're using it for, let's say, your forward-facing sonar, and various different uses for a tungsten jig.
For sure. A lot of guys will also use them like under a slip bobber, where maybe your traditional lead jig is a little bit too big a profile, but you can use like a smaller tungsten jig on there, and it still gets you the weight without being, such a massive profile for some of the more finicky fish.
And the obvious difference is the price.
For sure.
There's a dramatic difference between lead and tungsten as far as the price is concerned. But again, as far as other uses of that, why a person would want to spend a little bit more money is the sensitivity of the tungsten jig versus the lead.
For sure, especially when it's maybe early spring or later in the fall, when maybe the bite's a little bit more, I wouldn't say finicky, but just maybe a lighter bite in general. That sensitivity of your tungsten jig, whether it means a subtle bite or maybe just like bouncing across rocks or wood, whatever it may be, you're just going to have a lot better feel when you're using a tungsten jig because it is a denser metal.
So when we're talking about those price differences, the obvious question also is going to be, well, when should I use a lead-headed jig versus a tungsten jig? And there's, obviously both of us, we've used both, we have them both in our tackle boxes. So when do you use a lead-headed jig? I know when I do, but when do you?
For sure. I would say there's never really a scenario where I would say that a lead jig is maybe so much better than a tungsten jig, but maybe it just is not necessary. And I would say a few of the main applications would be, one, if you're fishing in super shallow water where maybe the fall rate doesn't really matter as much, and the second one would be if there's a ton of pike around or a ton of snags, it's just maybe not financially beneficial to go with the tungsten at that time.
We're talking an economical advantage, right? You're being smart. You don't, if you got a lot of pike or you got a lot of snags, you don't want to be throwing a tungsten jig out there because you're going to have to replace it, and it's going to be a lot more expensive to replace that tungsten jig than the lead-headed jig. So
sure.
Yeah, it's the time to use your head out there, to say the least.
Exactly.
And so now there's a number of different companies that offer tungsten jigs, like Northland, Acme, and also VMC. There's really not much difference between the three. There's a few more differences now. They're kind of, shall we say, snazzing them up a little bit in various things. But how about a short shank versus a long shank jig?
Yeah, they're going to be, they kind of all have their similar differences as they would with lead compared to tungsten. It's just kind of, whether you're using maybe a long shank is more obviously for your plastics, or maybe even like a night crawler, where your short shanks, you're more focused on leeches or minnows, or I guess in some cases like your really small plastics, but mostly focused on your live bait.
Do you use, let's say, a tungsten jig with plastics? That's one of the other questions that a lot of people have. Would you use it?
For sure. I use tungsten jigs all the time with plastics. They're going to have, your tungsten jigs, not only are they since they're more expensive, they're going to be some of your most high quality jigs. Therefore, you're going to get some of your best, hook keepers on there for holding plastics on, as well as live bait. So you're going to get an overall great jig.
Well, and the good thing here, folks, is that we use both of them. You know, all of our employees use jigs, as all of you do as well. But we have, and even what makes it even better is we have a great selection of jigs, tungsten as well as lead-headed jigs. That we're here to help you and answer any questions you have when it comes, comes to know the differences between the two or the various differences of the companies. So again, make sure you stop by here at the store. But if you can't make it to the store, check us out on the web at dakotaangler.com, and we'll send your order out right away. But we appreciate you stopping by. We appreciate the time that you've given us, and we'll see you here next time at Inside the Tackle Box.